Top 5 Best Entry-Level DSLRs Camera in 2020. Number 5. Canon Rebel T7. The Canon T7 is one of the newer options on this list, from February 2018, but its specifications already feel outdated. The camera has 24 megapixels, 3 frames per second shooting, and a 9-point autofocus system. It doesn't have a touchscreen or a tilt-flip screen for taking pictures at tricky angles. However, it sells for just $400, which is a good value overall. Canon has 2 different 24-megapixel APS-C sensors, with APS-C meaning that the sensor measures 22.2 mm in width. The Rebel T7 has the older one. So, you won't get quite the level of image quality as with the newest APS-C Canon cameras, and we've found that even those lag behind Nikon's sensors in low light. Nevertheless, this is still a high-quality camera sensor, capable of detailed photos in both daytime and nighttime conditions. In fact, every DSLR on this list has very good image quality, and the differences are mainly visible under exaggerated conditions. That said, the number 2 ranked Nikon D3500 is a better camera in essentially every way, and it only costs $50 more at $450. If value is your aim, that's where I'd focus instead. If you have the Rebel T7, don't despair, it's a good camera, just not really priced according to its specifications. But I will say this: despite the T7's flaws, if you can't take the photos you want with this camera, it's unlikely that any of the DSLRs below will solve your problem. Coming in number 4. Canon Rebel T7i. Every camera from here on out is what I'd consider a really good buy for the typical consumer. Even though the Canon Rebel T7i, EOS 80D ranks 5th, it's one of the most balanced cameras on the market and offers some pretty impressive features. For example, the T7i matches the 770D in essentially every single specification, aside from the advanced control layout, no second dial, and yet it costs $150 less at $700, though the price can fluctuate. You may want to check in case there's a sale. At that price, you get all of Canon's bells and whistles, including the new 24-megapixel sensor, dual-pixel AF, and 45 autofocus points. These specifications are versatile enough to be used for anything from landscape photography to sports and theater performances. I would put the T7i higher on the list, but the $700 price range is popular for entry-level DSLRs, so there's a lot of competition here. For example, before you settle on this camera, take a look at the Canon Rebel SL3, $50 less at $650, matching or exceeding many of the T7i's specifications. Or the $700 Nikon D3500, which is very similar to the T7i, but weighs less and has better battery life. That said, if you find a good deal on the T7i, or its specifications seem perfect for you, go for it. This camera is a pleasure to use, one of my favorites from testing, with a great LCD and an excellent kit lens. Not long ago, it sold for $850, and even then I could see a case for buying it. Coming in number 3. Pentax K70. If you want a combination of top build quality, advanced controls, and a tilt-flip screen, look no further than the Pentax K70. This is an excellent and overlooked camera for beginners, and it's a good value at $700, check current price. With a 24-megapixel sensor, 11 viewfinder autofocus points, and 6 fps shooting, the K70 is a highly capable camera with few downsides. It even has hybrid AF and live view, similar to Canon's dual-pixel AF, and great for video shooters. Any issues with the K70 depend upon your personal requirements, including how much you are willing to invest in a smaller DSLR company. Canon and Nikon are certainly more established names in the camera business, with a larger camera and lens lineup should you wish to upgrade in the future. At the same time, Pentax now has 2 full-frame cameras, the K1 and K1 Mark II, with larger sensors and the company's most advanced features, so you still have an upgrade path with this camera. The nearest competitors to the K70 are the Canon T7i and Nikon D3500. All of these cameras are priced at $700 and have very similar specifications. To me, though, the K70's more rugged build quality and better handling, especially the second control dial, are more valuable than the lighter weight and better autofocus of the Nikon and Canon. But not all photographers will agree. In fact, I'm probably in the minority there. The K70 loses out in this list to the Nikon D3500 and Canon Rebel SL3, largely due to price/performance ratio. The Nikon is a fantastic value at $450, while the Canon has similar specifications to the K70 but costs $50 less and adds 4K video. Still, for photographers who put a priority on build quality and an advanced control layout, say, landscape photographers who know they'll be shooting in bad weather, the Pentax very well could be the top camera for you. Although 11 autofocus points isn't much, everything else about the camera is hard to beat, and worth the higher price. Coming in number 2. Nikon D3500. Nikon's D3000 lineup is arguably the best value for a DSLR today, and the D3500 is an excellent continuation of the previous versions. See our review. Because of its extremely good price, this is often the first DSLR I recommend to my friends who want a new camera. The D3500 is a mere $450 with a kit lens, at least at the time of publishing this article. Prices can fluctuate, and I saw it at $400 not long ago. Check current D3500 price. What's more, the D3500's 24-megapixel camera sensor is excellent, the same as on the D5600, which is perhaps the best APS-C sensor on the market today. If image quality is all you care about, the D3500 is equal to or better than every other camera on this list, not a small feat considering its low price. In that case, why isn't it ranked number 1? A few things. First, although the D3500's image sensor is fantastic, cameras are about more than just a sensor. Other factors like ease of use, autofocus system, screen quality, and so on, also play a role. These are all areas where the D3500 sometimes falls behind the competition. To start, the camera's LCD does not tilt or flip at all, and it's not a touch screen. Video shooters especially will want to look at something like the Nikon D5600 or Canon SL3 instead, which fixes those problems. The D3500's autofocus system also has pretty low specifications, although it surprised me in practice with how accurate it was. Still, the D3500 only has 11 autofocus points in the viewfinder, simply not enough to track a subject around the entire frame. If you're photographing something that moves fast, like sports or other performances, you might want a camera with a better autofocus system. Look at something like the D5600 or Canon T7i for good autofocus on a reasonable budget, or the Canon 770 or Pentax KP if your budget is a bit higher. The Nikon D3000 lineup has been the company's least expensive DSLR line for years, the fewest features, but also the best prices. Unfortunately, Nikon's recent updates to this lineup didn't add much. Compared to the D3400, the D3500 has a slight increase in battery life, a deeper grip, and a 1-ounce weight reduction, 30 grams. That said, I've now used the D3500 for some extensive field tests, and it clearly is an improvement. The biggest point in its favor is the grip. The D3400 had a very uncomfortable grip that we complained about in our review, while the D3500 is very comfortable to hold. Still, if budget is your main concern, I wouldn't necessarily get the newest version of this camera. The D3500 isn't all that different from the D3200 that launched way back in April 2012, let alone the D3300 and D3400. All of the older versions are discontinued, but you can still find them refurbished or used from plenty of sources, with excellent prices. Coming in number 1. Canon EOS REBEL SL3. The top camera on this list is also the newest, the Canon SL3, EOS 250D. It's a great camera, and tremendous fun to use. The SL3 is tiny and lightweight, yet the grip is still comfortable, and it has some of Canon's most advanced features, including the newer 24-megapixel sensor. When I reviewed the nearly identical previous version, the Canon SL2, in New Mexico's Bisbee Badlands and Chicago's Glass and Steel Jungle, I came away with the impression that this is a fantastic camera for any photographer, not just for a first-time DSLR shooter, even though that is the SL3's target audience. Main features: the SL3 has an excellent touchscreen LCD, with a full range of tilting motion for easy composition, like the Nikon D3500. And the 24-megapixel sensor is Canon's newest, with excellent image quality, though it still lags slightly behind Nikon in low light. For the technically minded, no more than one stop of difference at high ISOs, based on our tests. Video users also will be happy to hear that the SL3 has dual-pixel autofocus, the least expensive Canon camera to include it. The big difference compared to the earlier SL2 is that the SL3 has 4K video, the only camera on this list to have it, although it only works with a heavy 2.64x crop relative to full frame. The Canon SL3 currently sells for $650 with a kit lens, which is a bit pricey, but you certainly get good features for the money. Compared to the Nikon D3500, for example, it adds a tilt flip screen, 4K video, and dual pixel AF, making it much more useful for video. I also prefer the kit lens that comes with the SL3 in terms of ergonomics and size. The two cameras are otherwise pretty similar, so if you don't shoot much video, I'd save the $200 and get the excellent D3500 instead. Alternatively, you can still buy the older SL2 used for less money. The SL2 also has a tilt flip screen and dual pixel AF, it just doesn't have 4K video, and its battery life is a bit worse. Everything else is the same between the SL2 and SL3. And that does it. However, before you focus too much on the specific rankings here, let me return for a moment to the number 5 camera on this list, the Canon T7i. That camera loses to the SL3 in weight, 532 vs 449 grams, price, $700 vs $650, battery life, 600 vs 1070, and video, no 4K option, but beats it in autofocus performance, 45 vs 9 autofocus points, and frame rate, 6 fps vs 5 fps. If you're thinking that the T7i could easily be the preferred option for many photographers at that point, you're completely right. The difference from number 5 to number 1 on this list is pretty small. But in those small differences the SL3 wins out.